So good afternoon, Marty Wolf. How are you doing?
Joe Redding, PSA Systems. What a
Yeah,
delight to be with you in 2025. I'm
yeah,
really excited because we're going to be talking to a real entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurs, Joe.
yeah, and a techie
And a
entrepreneur.
techie. Wow, even
Yeah,
better. You know?
yeah, we are talking a lot of tech here late between us and the team here at PSA, so I'm excited about this one for sure. And it is the first podcast of 2025, so hey, we're so excited to have our guest here with us today. So today we're going to be discussing the business and technology behind intelligent monitoring, automation, and robotic solutions. So in order to do that, we're going to be chatting with Chris Quick from RealBotics. Chris is the founder and CEO of RealBotics, where he develops real-time web-based technology for teleoperations and control of robotic equipment and devices. RealBotics specializes in industrial automation, consulting, and the remote control and remote troubleshooting of robot processes and installations. So Chris is also an engineer, an author to learn more about, and a mechatronics professor, and a former automation engineer at Alcoa, which is now Arconic, based out of Pittsburgh, PA, where I had the distinct pleasure of first meeting Chris. So we'll get into that, I'm sure, a little bit later too. But to learn more about RealBotics, please visit their website at www.realbotics.com, or feel free to follow Chris on his LinkedIn page. So, hey, Chris, how are you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you for
happy
the
to have you
intro.
here. Yeah, well, sure. Hey, and we're so happy to have you on the show, Chris. I mentioned during the little intro there that you and I have had a chance to work together in the past when you were with Arconic, Alcoa at that time, and that's where I got to know you. I got to know a little bit about how you got into the automation space, and you're actually how really enthralled you were with automation. You really wanted to take things to the next level, and you really dug in, pretty good there at Alcoa. And we'll get into talking a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to preface before we got started that we do have this relationship. I'm just really interested to learn about RealBotics as it is today, what you're doing in this techie space with this, remote monitoring of automation systems, and yeah, I'm just happy to have you on the show. So it's going to be a great one for the first one to kick off 2025. So let's get right to it. How's that sound?
Outstanding. Thank you.
Per- Perfect. Yes, sir. So, but before we get started, I'd like to always let you just explain a little bit about yourself to our listeners so they get a feel for like who Chris Quick is and what were you like as a kid growing up? I mean, you're so technology now based. Were you really a techie as a kid? And where'd you grow up and how'd you get into this crazy techno world?
Absolutely. Yeah, when I was little, I don't know exactly how young it started, but I was the person that all my family and then eventually like my teachers would bring all their broken stuff to. And I remember I had boxes of like cordless phones that didn't work and answering machines and all that kind of stuff back then. Um, and I don't know, I was never super fascinated by toys. I played a lot of like Legos and that kind of stuff, and was always just taking stuff apart and building things. And usually I would find myself frustrated that I didn't really know how a lot of that stuff worked, and so that kind of set me on my path to today. Um, but that was the only thing that ever made me tick. I have a couple kids now, and one of my sons is kind of similar. You buy him toys, and he just wants to take them apart. And so I don't know. It's something about I don't
Yeah.
know how people are born, I guess.
Sure, you want to get in that dissected. How does this thing work? Right, type of
Right,
thing.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. And so, with that, then, where did your studies take you? So you got interested in, where did your studies take you?
Yeah. So it started in high school. So it some of the I struggled a little bit in school initially, in middle school and high school, and hit my stride in there. But then didn't know, I didn't really know what engineering was. One of the first to kind of go to college out of a pretty large family, and so the whole concept and what those possibilities were a little foreign, um, until middle of high school. I started getting a lot into computer programming, loved that stuff. Took all the industrial trades classes I could get my hands on, and was very lucky that the my senior year was the first year our high school in the state of Kansas was introduced to FIRST robotics, and so that kind of was a phase shift for me. I think we were team 937, I believe. And so if it tells you where FIRST Robotics is today, they're in the 10,000s teams and,
Yeah.
worldwide. Um, that was a pivotal time for me. So I was able to really learn a lot about what you could do with these types of interests for real. And
Hmm.
so I went from senior year of high school into a community college in Kansas City, and started taking everything I could get my hands on again. So all the math, science, took welding and electronics and networking and just everything. And the counselors were starting to ask me like, you should graduate with a couple associate's degrees. You just need to take this class over here or this one. And I was like, no, I figured it out. I want to be an engineer. I'm just taking all this other cool stuff and I'm going to go somewhere else. And then I transferred to a place called Rose Holman Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, Indiana, and did a bachelor's and master's there in mechanical engineering, and took a ton of other disciplines, but didn't get degrees in the other disciplines. Just took everything that you needed to do robots is what I kind of ended up doing. Um,
So from like a mechanical design perspective, and then even in mechatronics, did you have some of those mechatronic classes?
yes, very much so. So I did mechanical engineering because at the time it was what I felt I knew the least about. Um, but they didn't have mechatronics degrees or robotics degrees at the time, with the exception of CMU. There was one or two programs. So I took a bunch of computer science, a bunch of computer vision, and then kind of standard electrical engineering classes. So that I could, you know, be dangerous in all the different pieces that make up, mechatronic or robotic type machines.
Right. And then from there, it landed you. Did you go straight to Alcoa after that, or did you have a couple small jobs before that? How did that happen?
So when I was in high school, somehow I got myself working for a little software company, my junior and senior year, and they hired me. I don't know, just to be nice, probably, and then I started to be able to do some programming. And then through the community college, I worked for the community college and wrote some software for them. Um, but then, right when I was graduating with engineering, um, it was 2008, so the job market was rough.
Hmm.
But I was one person that said that I had focused my school on automation and engineering, and there was a place for me, and that was Alcoa in Cleveland, Ohio. And so pretty quickly went straight there. Um, I thought about trying to start a company. I kind of knew at that time I wanted to. I'm glad I didn't, but I was thinking about going back to Kansas City, and um, I don't know what I would have done exactly, but where, hometown, and try to get something started there. Um,
So certainly entrepreneurship was on your mind because you said I was thinking about, starting a company, but I think you wanted a little more security maybe right off the bat by joining a nice company like Alcoa, right, to start a career.
Yeah, so it was a few things. So at the time, I met my wife, or now wife, in engineering school, and she was going to grad school in Pittsburgh. And so um, one reason I took the job in Cleveland is it was as close as I could get to Pittsburgh. It's 2.5 hours away. And the other thing was I wanted to start a company, and I knew I wanted to do something in robotics, but I really didn't know much, and I didn't have any money. So yeah, went with Alcoa, and we're very glad that I did. It was an outstanding opportunity.
Yeah,
Started at
great.
their forging plant, where we were lucky enough to meet.
Right. Yeah, spend some time in that plant for sure. Yeah, amazing.
That place.
Yeah, so I want to get into robotics and what you're doing with robotics right now, but I also want to, before I do that, talk a little bit about you being an author, right? So you worked not too long ago that you worked with Dr. Justin Starr and the
That's
co-author
correct.
to this book called Robotic Safety Systems and Applied Approach. So what drove you to say, hey, I'm going to write this book on, safety and the approaches and the do's and don'ts and all of that kind of stuff? Obviously you felt safety is important, right, with robots.
Yeah, very much so. So it was Alcoa that kind of pushed me into the world of safety. They are strive to be an extremely safe company, and were constantly providing training to us, and it was paramount with everything we did there. And so starting out as an engineer, I got that culture kind of embedded into engineering, and specifically robotics. And when I left Alcoa and started to venture out to other places, I realized the gap in the rigor that we were applying to safety at Alcoa, and then kind of just the standard everywhere else. And a lot of it has to do with it's a lack of knowledge and training. And so Dr. Starr was my boss at the community college in Pittsburgh, and was asking me about, if we were going to write a book, what would it be? And I said, I don't think there's anything except robot safety standards out there. And everyone I talk to, small companies and all that, it seems to be like a mystery. And so it seemed like a good, that there was an open space to put a book. There was some stuff from the 90s, and a handful of things out there, but nothing, recent, and really not much. So that's what started it. My teachers would tell you that I am the last person that they would ever expect to write a book. So I hope that a few of them find this and they're going to be like, I don't know what we did wrong or right, but this is not who we expected
wait,
to
let
ever
me
write.
jump in there. Wait a minute, let me jump in there. An entrepreneur won't wait for them to find it. An entrepreneur is going. Matter of fact, before you leave the office today, package up a couple of copies, get it
Mail
in
it
their
to
hands, and ask them for a review. Okay,
I
that's
have done
that's
this,
my
actually.
contribution. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, my fifth grade teacher is aware of this book, and she was shocked and also happy to see that it happened. But yeah, there was a particular person in my mind that I was like, I have to go ahead and let you see what happened here.
So Chris really did make it.
Well, I don't know about that, but I was told there was things I couldn't do, and so I wanted to make sure that someone knew, even though it's about 30 years later, that wasn't the case.
The early inspiration to do
That's
something.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
The drive, yeah, from the
That's
early
funny.
years.
So, where is this? Where can you get this book? Where would you suggest people buy it?
Yeah, so the publisher is the CRC Press. And if you Google robotic safety systems, that's the best place to find it. It'll bring it up on a few of their sites. Eventually, it'll be on Amazon. It's not quite there yet. And I can't say a lot about it, but there might be some industrial equipment that starts to include this book this year when you get one. So not 100% yet, but looking pretty likely.
So just do a search for robotic safety systems, and with your name, I guess, it'll pop up, and you can buy it there at this point in time. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Thanks.
You. You bet.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, Joe.
So now that we're moving on a little bit, you're the CEO, founder of RealBotics. So I had a brief introduction, but I'm sure there's more about RealBotics than what I had said. So who is RealBotics, and exactly what do you get into, and what do you do?
Yeah, so when I was at Alcoa, I learned a lot about trying to apply automation technology to manufacturing problems. And I also learned a lot about, at least what from Alcoa's perspective, what the drivers are in a manufacturing industry. And it's getting work done safely and, at a profit and quality. And how they go from A to B doesn't much matter. Automation is an outstanding solution and a very helpful tool, but if it doesn't work well, of course people don't want it in their way. And so my job as the automation guy at Alcoa was to try and take apply the technology to support production wherever we could. And they had a lot of challenging applications. They were very much a job shop, and um, especially 15 years ago, the the technology was not even close to up to the task for the variety of work and complexity of finishing tasks and grinding tasks and manipulation. And so we had a couple big wins. We did get some awesome technology in there, but not near the quantity of projects that we would have liked to been able to do. So that motivated me to, uh, you know, look at technology. I loved all that tinkering from a young age. Now I felt equipped with knowledge from all the schooling and time at Alcoa, and I thought, what can we do to bridge the gaps and make real things that can actually solve real problems. And I didn't much care how it got done, um, but but try to do that. And so RealBotics is about bringing humans and using humans to fill in the gaps to wherever the existing technology isn't up to snuff. So we kind of bring the strengths of a human and the rest of the equipment together in one place. Um, and apply it to problems. We call that, the technical term is tele-robotics, so remote control, usually with a human doing the work, as opposed to what everybody it talks about today is autonomous systems and AI. And we look like at our technology as the beginning step along that journey to maybe fully autonomous one day. Um, so in a nutshell, we're a platform, some hardware, a lot of software, um, to bring humans and machines together for whatever task you might throw at it.
Chris, let me be clear because you said something there. I want to go a little deeper on. So you said you're the first step in the process of getting to autonomous. Go a little deeper on that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so some of my early findings on those projects were you could build an autonomous system for any task. And I would say that's mostly true. But is there an ROI there? So you might have years of software development or training of a system or something like that to make a robot be able to finish all the product that might come down a manufacturing line. And so why I say we're the first step is you could put an essentially, uh, manual run robot starting a task and chip away at that autonomous learning path, but do real work from the beginning of that project, as opposed to how things are usually done, which is you try to get it fully operational, 99% uptime, and the ROI is calculated based on that system going in and being feasible. We're trying to find a way that you can get this technology, apply it, and sooner than later, and have it improve over time.
I love that.
If that makes sense.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
I think that's right on target, man. You know. So okay,
Thank you.
Joe. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Finish up.
Well, yeah, well, so, but there's also some software mixed in with some hardware. And are you using any type of AI for this, or is it really just learning as you're programming and adjusting programs, but doing that remotely? Am I understanding that correctly on this tele-operations remote monitoring type
Yeah.
thing?
So what we've done is we've taken a kind of a granular approach to this whole space. And so what we're building is any software and hardware. Sometimes the hardware is just connector boards and interface pieces that are needed to go from, software to XYZ robot brand or model or a PLC. And um, and filling in those gaps. So um, initially, we're targeting just remote troubleshooting. So you might have a fairly autonomous system that's doing kind of standard automation projects that are out there, maybe a palletizing system, but occasionally, 5% of the time it gets jammed or boxes come smashed together and the vision system can't see what's going on. So our platform will let you remote in and connect to all of that equipment, not just one vendor's piece of that equipment. You can look at that whole system, and the human can take action and then hand control back over to the automated system. We can collect data during that process, and then we can help you improve the autonomous side of, that missing 5 or 10% in that case. So that's what we're trying to accomplish today. And over time, we plan to expand further and further into supporting that goal, and starting from 50% automation or 0% autonomous automation.
Excellent. So as I looked on your website, because I was tinkering around on a little bit, I saw there's some things that you delve into, and one of them is like a middleware platform. What does middleware platform mean, and how is it used?
Yeah, middleware platforms are kind of the simple way to think of it as a software bridge. And it's taking systems of different types, different manufacturers, things that talk different protocols, and filling in all the connections in between. So that you might have a robot of one brand that needs to talk to a vision system, and they're not compatible to directly connect. And so you can use middleware to kind of fill in the gap and translate information from one device into a format that the other device understands. That's kind of the standard definition of middleware. A great example, some of the biggest out there are ROS, the robot operating system. That's a huge middleware platform. There's many others. There's Open RMF, which will get you to things like elevators and other equipment that maybe an autonomous robot might not know how to talk to. So what RealBotics is doing is trying to build a version of that is user friendly, has this tele-robotics embedded from the ground up, so that a human can kind of be a part of that middleware. And then bring together the existing tools that are great already. So things like ROS.
Okay. And so you're a startup, right? You're still in that startup mode, or have you bridged that over that now, and you're into full autonomy as a company running yourself and profitability? How is this running
It's a
right
gray
now?
area. Depends on who you ask. The answer is we were bootstrapped, and so it's been a long road to being profitable and being in the market, selling our actual products the way we want. And so I would say we're exiting that startup stage finally. Um, and really the end of last year and this year, we're going to bring our products publicly, a few of them to market for the first time. Everything we've done to date has been either word of mouth or special use cases applying our technology. And we have enough built now that we're ready to bring some stuff kind of more traditionally to the market, which is a huge step for us.
Well, congratulations, number
Yeah.
one.
Thank you.
Having been an entrepreneur starting 5 different businesses, I understand. Why did we're getting into the entrepreneur part of this thing, why did you decide to bootstrap as opposed to going for that pot of money that most people make the mistake of going after too soon? But that's my editorial comment. So why did you bootstrap?
Yeah, there was a few things. Part of it was it was a learning process for me, and took time. And so part of it was I did not. I'm very much an engineer, and so I was motivated to solve the problems, and that's a lot of where the passion and kind of the fuel that's allowed me to do this has come from. And but the single biggest thing was when I did talk to angel investors and VC folks, the vision we have is quite large, and um, we really needed to pick a specific niche. And in those conversations, I felt like that was going to drive us down a short-sighted path, that we were never going to realize what I think is the true value to what we're trying to build. And so I felt like I had to get it far enough that I could prove the concepts and that it was real, so that I could have people take us seriously. And I think we've finally been able to get that far, that it'll start to make sense. COVID helped a lot in that no one understood why remote stuff mattered
Yeah, there you go.
before COVID. And, the conversation was always difficult to even try to get them to that understanding first.
Yeah.
Now all of that is gone. People understand, okay, this remote makes sense, and now I can show them it as well.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest reason. We kind of had to build enough to make people understand what we were talking about.
Slow and steady. I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go back to you, Joe.
Yeah, no, it took a lot of work, right?
Oh,
and time for you to generate that, and willpower to stick with, the path down that road, right?
Definitely. It's daunting in some ways, but it's also what motivates me. I feel like I have that idle hands problem, and so having kind of no end in sight is always been the best thing that can happen for me to stay engaged. And if there's a mountain that it feels like I'll never get up, I just keep clawing at it, and that's been great.
Well, I think it's like a great. Go ahead, Marty.
Well, part of the whole learning journey, I'm assuming along the way, I see, that you networked, and I'm assuming you connected yourself to certain individuals or associations or groups. And so talk to us about that. I'm assuming that was part of your learning journey.
A huge part. So part of what I explain and why we've chosen this bootstrap path is one of the biggest benefits that I think gets lost when you don't go this route is, for us to survive, we had to find customers that had problems, and we only moved forward when we could find one. They would give us money, we would solve their problem, and we would learn a ton about what we were building. And we did that for 10 years to get to where we're at. And so we have a vast network and a deep understanding of what's going on out there. And that has been a long road, but I think one of the most valuable ones we could have taken.
What are some of the organizations that you're involved with? I know the ARM, right? Because we're both, members of the ARM Institute, right? And that's a good collaborative workspace where you can, use your technology and in that arena and their ecosystem. But what others?
Yep.
Are you a member of A3 organization?
So we're not a member of A3 at the moment. We are members of Mass Robotics, which is a group out of Boston, Massachusetts, of robotic startup companies. They are outstanding. Yeah. Pittsburgh Robotics Network in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is kind of similar. That's been a great group. ARM, as you mentioned. We've done a decent amount of work as subject matter experts for American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And those are probably our biggest groups that we're actively a part of. And then some colleges, as a professor at CCAC and in Pittsburgh. Some of those places we have affiliations with and do a lot of grant work through them.
Pittsburgh seems to be the Silicon Valley for technology. Is that
for
reason?
robotics?
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a competition between Boston, Silicon Valley still, and Pittsburgh for who is the leader in robotics and that kind of technology. Mm-hmm. So my approach was kind of why pick, and I just tried to get involved in all of them. And which has been quite awesome. But when people find out, they'll be like, did I see you at a PRN event? They asked me at Mass Robotics or vice versa. And I'm like, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, Joe.
Well, so one of the things when I think about what you're doing as tele-operations, you talk about remote troubleshooting in the automation world, and what we deliver solutions is bridging that gap, as we talked about earlier, of the technology solution and the operators that are operating it, and are they technically advanced enough to run it or troubleshoot it, and to have this solution available. And I think that's what's really exciting for as a system integrator to be able to offer something like this, to our customers. So if I'm thinking about that, is this something that like a PSA or a systems integrator could come to you or look to you and say, hey, I'm looking to build this system. This is the solution. Here's are some of the things we would have to troubleshoot. And again, all devices, right? The holistic systemic approach, not just a robotic, but the whole system. Could we
Hmm.
work together and develop some sort of a solution and collaborate on that?
Absolutely. So, what our platform's really good at is bringing in all kinds of data streams. So we can do, audio, video. We can record all your sensor data, um, and while you can see and record all that at the same time, you can get involved. You can make changes. You can take real control. We can give you custom dashboards. So, an example use case is if you build a palletizing system and you guys have cracked that egg and it's very repeatable, you probably don't need a technology like ours. But if sometimes you get jams or you're trying to figure out what's going on with a system, or you want the peace of mind that you can flip that thing back on and find that bug um, within minutes as opposed to hours or days, um, tying our technology in is kind of where we see the benefit. So you can tell your customer that we can be remote, hands-on within 2 minutes of that machine stopping, compared to you scheduling a flight with us to come out in 2 days to see what's going on.
And although meanwhile you're collecting data, as you said, but that's like at analytics, so you can get system data, performance data, historical fault data, like something's happening over and over again, and that can kind of help again that troubleshooting. You grab all that information prior, so that when you start the troubleshooting process, you're well ahead of the game, right?
That's correct. We have something called a manufacturing DVR, and so you put cameras where you want them, and you can historically record. So if you have an event that'll trigger, can send you a text message. It'll go back in time and say 5 minutes before this event happened. Here's all your sensor data. Here's all the video logs. It'll send you that message, and you could pop into our dashboard and see all that stuff live, right where the machine left off, and you can go back in time and say what happened just before the machine stopped. Um, so those same tools help you with your AI later, but right now that we're targeting it at these troubleshooting applications.
Joe, what he just said is exactly what we've just been reading in the book that we're
Hmm.
reading right now. It's
Yeah.
exactly what he's saying, and I didn't have I have another copy of the book that I was going to pull out and say and read back. We're connected to an author, an AI person, and so we're reading one of his books
Oh,
right now. And
nice.
yeah, and you're right on target, Chris, with a lot of stuff that they're talking about. Yeah,
Well, that's
fascinating.
good to hear.
Oh,
We're trying to
no, you
be.
already know that, but again, I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm enamored by AI and the possibilities, good and bad. And I'm reading and studying and sharing with people like Joe who are also interested for their business as well as.
Hmm.
But just a, the human side of it. Any leading thinker in AI is going to say that is a critical part of this whole AI journey, whatever you want to call it. The leading people, what's his name, Suleiman, who's the president or now the head of Microsoft AI. His book is first of all is a great book. It's called The Coming Wave, and a big part of that book is the importance of humans designing, being part of, etc. So again, I got on my soapbox a little bit there, but give me your thoughts on that.
I completely agree. I think the way that we look at it, just like any technology that you guys have worked to put in, or any early technology, there's always a human element, no matter what it is. And AI is no exception to that. AI has great power, but every new problem you apply it to needs that human support. And so our goal is just to make that as seamless and quick as possible, so that you can apply the technology right away and
That's
get the
important.
benefits.
That's
So,
important. That's important. What you just said.
Yeah.
That's really important. Okay, Joe, back to you.
And Marty, to think that Chris was thinking outside the box, you said 10, like almost 10 years ago, and thinking, hey, I want to get into this and I want to do this remote tele-operations, and I have all the, and now you're just kind of riding that wave, and it's like almost like a perfect timing because it's here and you're just ready to
it
just kind of
is.
ride it right on in. That's what great timing. But it
He's
took a
gonna
long way,
take-
a long time for
he's
you, buddy.
he's going to take credit for being
Oh.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Joe,
Heck
you know,
yeah.
he knew this all along, man. It's so,
It's one of those things where, I mean, you guys are in the trenches with us, and um, my bosses were, I brought in a whole bunch of manufacturing folks 10, 12 years ago and said, what is the average number of parts that a robot that you put in can handle? And the number is 2 or 7. I think the highest number I got was 12. And we were running 2,000 different parts. And so I'm like, there's a large gap here. And so,
Yeah.
but at the same time, people, there was risky work that was going on. It was hard to find people to fill some of these jobs in a heavy forging plant.
Yeah.
And so I thought, does anyone care if it's a remote person making the robot do the work, or if it's the software making the robot do the work? No one seemed to care, So that's
great.
what led to, the realization, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
as
Joe,
we get
how do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, as I say, as we get to wrap up here, is there a success story that you'd like to share of a company that has used your solutions and gained, whether it be, efficiencies, proficiencies?
Yeah. So the my favorite example at the moment is um, uh, a business. I can't say their name, unfortunately, but that they're developing a mobile technology for the fracking industry. And what happens with this is it's all in a shipping container, and it gets deployed on a weekly or monthly basis at different fracking sites around the country. And the folks that are building the system want to be able to remotely monitor. They want to eventually automate the process that's happening with the equipment, but right now it takes humans to tune it. And every time it gets dropped off, that process starts over, and the humans figure it out, but no one knows ahead of time what it's going to be. And so we've applied our control system and our technology to that. And so they have a Starlink satellite on board the shipping container. We GPS track it 24 hours a day. When it gets dropped off, we're able to power everything up remote. Once it's connected to the grid, we track all their weather data, all their sensor information, and then at the same time they have cameras and audio, and they're able to fire this thing up, tune it, make the job happen, and collect all the data and at the same time and pack it back up and do the next one. And so our control system does all that. We bring live video of the people at the site right there, so they can have a conversation like this with a technician that's working with a piece of equipment and pushing some of the buttons, and it's all integrated. So that's our
Wow.
favorite one at the moment.
Wow, that's slick. Good for
Pretty
you.
powerful.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
Well, awesome.
Okay, Joe.
Well,
Thank
Chris,
you.
it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for spending a good half hour with us, explaining what you're doing and technology today. And look forward to seeing you again in the future. I'm sure we'll be bumping into one another.
Absolutely.
The website again to find you is
RealBotics.com.
okay.
RealBotics.com.
And are you on LinkedIn? And do you welcome people reaching out to you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Just Chris Quick, RealBotics Inc. Love to hear from you. We'll do anything we can to help you. I appreciate so much, gentlemen, that the time and the support, and hope that one of these days I can work with PSA on a project.
Yeah, we're hoping so too. Hey, thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.